Okay.
Hi everyone, we're just getting started. Just give us 2 minutes, please. We're still admitting more participants into the Zoom call. We're also live. So I think we can get started, Vandana. Let's not.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on a weekday evening. And a happy Onam to everyone celebrating it today. I'm Vandana from Urvani Foundation. Before we begin, I would like to take a few minutes to introduce Urvani and our work, as some of you here might be new, and also, why we've decided to do this webinar. So at Urvani Foundation, we connect people who want better cities with knowledge, tools, and networks to make it happen. Our three initiatives include the civic journalism platform Citizen Matters, which provides accessible reporting on urban issues. The second one is Open City, a civic tech platform and data commons, and the Civic Learning Hub, under which we conduct courses, masterclasses, webinars, and workshops. So we see ourselves as facilitators who can engage and empower citizens with knowledge and tools to take action. And this webinar attempts to do just that. We have brought together experts and citizens who will take us through the makings of the Hebbal Short Tunnel Project, a vehicular underpass connecting the Hebbal flyover junction to the veterinary college. So this project has already generated public concern and legal contestation on the basis of its environmental implications. But this webinar is not simply about this one project. As we speak, various bodies in Bengaluru are planning several massive infrastructure projects, including 11 elevated corridors, a longer tunnel road, and two massive ring road projects. And all these projects are being undertaken with little to no citizen consultation. And in many cases, the legislations, laws, regulations are actively being changed to accommodate them. So through this webinar, we want to use the Hebbal Short Tunnel as an opportunity to look at how large development projects are undertaken in Bengaluru, a city that has been without elected corporators for nearly a decade. So I would like to welcome all of you to the webinar and start with introducing our speakers who have taken the time and effort to be here and engage with us today. I'll start with Professor Ashish Verma. He's a professor of transportation and systems engineering at Department of Civil Engineering and heads the Sustainable Transportation Lab at the Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru, India. He's also the founding president of Transportation Research Group of India, an international group on sustainable transport and livability. Rishvanjas Raghavan is governing council member, Bengaluru NavaNirmana Party. His academic background is in economics, finance, and public policy. He's actively involved in Bengaluru's local governance through the BNP and has been especially vocal about the Hebbal Short Tunnel Project via social media. Elizabeth Soumya is founder of the Hebbal Nature Society, which is a collective of citizens working to conserve biodiversity in North Bengaluru. She's also an independent journalist and nature educator and a long-term resident of Bengaluru. Puneet Sachdev is a marketing consultant and photographer, particularly interested in cities, people, and civic storytelling. He also contributes as a photojournalist and has been extremely vocal about the Short Tunnel Project. Before I let Puneet take over and start the webinar, I would like to go over a few reminders to all our participants today. This webinar is being recorded by the organizers and is being streamed live on YouTube. To reduce any noise and audio disturbance, we request you to keep yourself muted when others are speaking. The webinar will also be followed by a brief Q&A session open to all participants. Please feel free to post your questions on the chat on Zoom as well as on the YouTube Live. We'll have someone monitoring it. And the detailed bios of all our speakers will be shared in the chat box for all of you to read and refer to as we go through the webinar. Welcome once again, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for what we hope will be a very fruitful discussion. Over to you, Puneet.
Thanks, Vandana. Good evening, everyone. I will share my screen. Yes, is my screen visible?
Yes, Puneet.
All right. All right. So, thanks, Vandana. You already introduced me, but I'll just take this chance to again, introduce myself. So yeah, I'm Puneet. I'm not really an expert on any of these things like Ashish Verma or Elizabeth or Rishvanjas, but I think I'm just an active citizen who's concerned about my city. So basically, I do documentary photography and I try to tell all these stories through my Instagram page, which is called as Candid Bengaluru. Right. Okay. So yeah, here we are to talk about the Hebbal Short Tunnel. So what I will do is just give you a quick overview of what exactly this tunnel is, where exactly it starts and ends and other specifics. I'll just start with that. Right. So this short tunnel starts from near Esteem Mall. It is after the Hebbal flyover when we are going towards the airport. So it starts near the Esteem Mall. It comes along the Hebbal Lake and then crosses the veterinary college campus and exits near the Baptist Hospital. So this entire patch that we see is the veterinary college campus, which has got a lot of their administrative buildings and a lot of greenery, a lot of green space, open space, which Elizabeth will be talking about in detail. So it is cutting across through this veterinary college campus, which is going to sort of disturb this whole area. It is only about 2.2 kilometers in length. It's a very short road. It's 2.2 kilometers. It's a 6-lane twin tunnel, each side 3 lanes. And it is a cut and cover construction method. So, when we say tunnel road, generally we assume that it is going to be entirely underground, boring machines and things like that. But here it is going to be a cut and cover method, which is basically they're just going to dig up the ground, lay the roads there, and build walls along. And it comes at a cost of over 1,000 crores. This is like one of the most expensive projects in Bangalore. 1,000 crores for just 2.2 kilometers. Yeah. So speaking of the, sort of ecology and the green and blue spaces, so the GKVK campus, Hebbal Lake, Veterinary College campus, and this IISc campus, they all, form this large blue and green land area in the North Bangalore. And how the tunnel actually cuts through this lake. Yeah. So as you can see here, just, sort of highlighted, this road comes here, takes this deviation and takes up quite a bit of the lake also, which is about 3.5 acres of the lake. So again, this will create a lot of issues in terms of, flooding and the underground water going dry. So what will happen here is when there is a road, or like a big structure in between, it is going to obstruct between these two regions, which is the lake and this side. So this area could potentially, go dry because the water levels, underground water levels do not receive enough water. And that would cause flooding on the other sides. Again, all these things will be addressed a little more in detail, just giving you a brief overview here. Right. And this is something very concerning and disturbing. There is already a red line planned, on the same stretch, which will go towards the airport, running across from Mikri Circle, Hebbal towards the airport. But that has been deprioritized for this particular project. There was also a metro station planned right at the veterinary college campus junction, which has now been dropped to accommodate the exit of this particular tunnel road. So, when we do a comparison of roads and metro, this is like, there's just no comparison. What a metro can do is like, it's mentioned it can carry lakhs of people every day. But with the tunnel road, it's just going to be few thousand cars, not people. This is another interesting fact, which, their own report says that, okay, so like it's mentioned here, traffic engineers, they grade roads from A to F, right? So A, again, Dr. Ashish Verma is here. He'll be giving, much more details about what all of this means. But then level A is, very free flowing, and F is pretty much like a parking lot. It's just jammed. So the BDA's own report says that the day this tunnel opens, it will be at level D and E. That means it is opening to traffic right from day one, while it claims that it is going to solve the problem of congestion and traffic. Again, this is the irony that it is there in its own report, in the project's own report. And there are many more red flags along with that. The BMLTA review was bypassed. Rishi will be talking much more in detail about the BMLTA. Veterinary college also objected having, a surface level road. So originally it was planned that this road would not be a tunnel road, but then it would cut across the veterinary college campus at surface. So veterinary college objected that, telling that we will not allow a surface level road, but we are okay with the underground road. But what they are doing is still damaging the surface. So again, this is very contradictory. They raised these objections, but no heed paid to that. The finance department of Karnataka also raised this concern that this is 10 times more expensive than a normal surface road project. So again, why are they doing this while it is not really a tunnel? What is the need to spend so much money just to dig land and again, build walls and build the road? That is something that we need to really, think and introspect. And like we discussed, the whole metro and the long tunnel road also. So there is a long tunnel from Hebbal to Silk Board Junction. There is a lot of conflict between these two as well. So, the long tunnel is going to be a toll road, while the short tunnel is going to be a free road. So most of the traffic could potentially, move more towards this short tunnel than the longer tunnel. Then what is the need of this long tunnel then? We'll be going more in detail about all these things. And then, there has been quite a lot of resistance from citizens, from organizations, from body, from, anyone who's concerned about this. And there have been some PIs which have been filed in the court. So the last hearing that we were present the court directed the government to produce the assessment reports, the ecological assessment reports. This was again primarily, we were sort of contesting that there are a lot of trees that are going to get cut inside the campus. 3.5 acre of lake is going to be taken for this road. And there has been no really ecological assessment done. The kind of damage that, it can do to the whole ecology of that area is not present. So the court acknowledged that fact and they directed the government to produce these reports. That was by the 20th of August. And on the 24th of August, that is this week, there was supposed to be a hearing which got adjourned. And now the next hearing is on 3rd September, which is going to be an online hearing. So again, why this delay, what is happening, we really don't know. While all this is happening, the ground reality is that, the construction is moving at full speed. I visited again this campus last Sunday, and as you can see here, this entire thing is marked for the road. So this is the boundary for the road. There are huge containers that have come here, which have got something called as polymer. So polymer is something that they're going to add after they dig so that the land doesn't collapse. So it's a particular thing, polymers that they're going to add. So huge equipments, lot of investment already there. I spoke to a couple of engineers there, and they said that they target to finish this casing by in 8 months. There is a huge shed which has been set up for the workers who are here to build all of this. So around 2000 workers are going to be here. They're going to be living there. And all this has already started while there is so much objection still going on, which is unresolved. Yeah. And yeah, so this like Vandana also rightly mentioned when we started that, it is not just about this particular project, but it is the pattern where such huge projects are being sanctioned without necessary, assessments, without consultations from experts, from citizens, nothing. It is just brazen, audacity where these different organizations are just going ahead and spending so much of our money on these projects which are not even going to help too much. I would not even say too much, they're not going to help at all. Yeah, so yeah, that's all. I think I will allow Dr. Ashish to go in detail about the specifics and the how it will impact the traffic or how it will not going to impact the congestion. So yeah, over to you, Dr. Ashish.
Thanks. Vandana, can I go ahead?
Go ahead, yeah.
I'll just share my screen. Share. Can you confirm if you can
Yeah,
see?
we can see your screen. Yeah.
Great. So thanks, Puneet, for setting the context quite well. So yes, in this presentation, which is mostly purely technical, we'll look at this whole traffic impact of the proposed short tunnel between Hebbal Flyover Junction and Veterinary College. And this whole premise that this short tunnel will solve some traffic problem is what we are going to investigate and see at the end whether it really does or not. So the idea is to investigate whether that core purpose, which has been stated by government of Karnataka, and I remember reading the government notes and justification that this will be a permanent long-term solution. So it would be interesting to see what this short tunnel really does in terms of what has been stated. Okay. So I'll start with these three hypotheses. And I remember presenting these three hypotheses in the Sankey Tank flyover, public meeting presentation also. Thankfully, we were able to stop that project, which again would have, caused a lot of damage to Sankey Tank. So the first hypothesis is that the grade separators, and I'm categorizing all these, whether it is tunnel roads, flyovers, elevated corridors, underpasses, double decker, etc. All these, technically are called as grade separators, do not solve the traffic congestion. Rather, they only shift the point of traffic congestion. Interestingly, we keep seeing this hypothesis coming true in our own experiences within the city, years and years, decades and decades, and other cities also, without really learning from it. And it's amazing to see how the same old wine is being sold in the new bottle every time. Second hypothesis is grade separators follow a vehicle-centric approach. They focus on vehicle flow and vehicle capacity and not on people-centric approach, not to maximize the throughput of people and goods, which is what is the true goal, for a mobility system in a city. And which is opposite to the core principle of our national urban transport policy, which clearly says that to focus on moving people, not empty cabins and empty vehicles. Third, grade separators do not account for network effects because you think that you're solving something at one junction, but what it is doing at the network level, you don't know. How this congestion is shifting to other points, how it is impacting the overall end-to-end travel time. Those things are never understood. And grade separators generally have more damaging, and impact over the network. And also the effects of such grade separators on tailpipe emissions coming from transport from motorized vehicles is not never accounted for, understood. How the energy requirement changes, more and more that you build such infrastructure, you're also increasing your energy bill for transport. You're increasing your dependence for fuel and fossil fuel, and that too, when we are really struggling to get fuel for us. And also environmental and ecological impacts are ignored and not considered, and equity aspects are completely ignored. Yeah, so these are hypotheses. We'll see how we are able to testify or confirm these hypotheses towards the end of the presentation. So obviously the introduction has been done by Puneet, so I'll not get into the details of the project. But yes, Hebbal Junction has been a critical junction, and it connects important connection, especially by airport to the rest of the city. And so it has been facing, extreme congestion, and all kinds of, ideas and solutions keep coming up to decongest this Hebbal junction. So what this short tunnel is 2.228 kilometer, exactly as per what DPR says, on a short cut and cover tunnel, as Puneet also described, between these 2 points, and you can see the whole layout here. So the aim of our study was to evaluate the traffic impacts of this proposed short tunnel compared to a hypothetical scenario of an underground metro system along the same corridor. Yeah. To basically give a sense and understanding that if this would have been metro, how the space economy changes, how the cost, efficiency and cost, economics changes, how it becomes cost effective, how it becomes space efficient. So to understand these comparisons, we have done some, interesting calculations and interesting, a way to look at the alternatives. Yeah. So what we have done is we have taken a scenario-based traffic flow assessment where we consider existing travel characteristics, develop these scenarios, and try to assess the network performance for this proposed infrastructure intervention. So these three scenarios we have taken. First is business as usual, that is the existing infrastructure at Hebbal Junction, the way as it is. And then this business as usual current road infrastructure together with this proposed short tunnel that complements the existing road infrastructure. And third is a alternative hypothetical scenario, imagining that in this tunnel, instead of normal traffic, metro would have been running. So you would imagine that this is a 3-lane each direction, tunnel. That means there are 3 lanes in each direction. So if you imagine 3 metro tracks in these 3 lanes, easily, one can put 3 metro tracks here. What is the space dynamics? What is the capacity that you basically bring in? How does that comparison look like? So that's the third scenario. So what we have done is we have used the outcomes of our city, network level simulation model that we have developed over time, which we call it as 4-stage travel demand modeling, that helps us derive the link flows in and around Hebbal Junction on the roads and links for different years and for different scenarios, and helps us understand this whole calculation of volume to capacity ratio and how this would. Sorry, there is background noise. Somebody can take care. To basically help assess this V by C ratio, how it changes in the 3 scenarios. And for 3 years, we have taken 2027, 2031, 2041. 31 and 41 are taken to also make us understand the longevity of these interventions and solutions. And yes, Puneet has already shown this is how one can visualize a V by C ratio. If V by C ratio, volume to capacity ratio, is close to 1 or exceeding 1, hypothetically, essentially it helps us understand the gap between the demand and supply of capacity. Okay, so if anything close to 1 or beyond 1 is extremely jam condition. Yeah. So let's come directly to the results. So what we have is the peak hour flow direction. This is from city side towards going to the airport. And you have, let me take the pointer if I can. Yeah. So we have these 3 years, 2027, 21, and 2041. And for the 3 the locations, the entry of the tunnel, the Hebbal Junction, the exit of the tunnel, and Mekri Circle. Yeah. How these V by C ratio looks like for each of these 3 scenarios. Okay. So in the existing scenario, you would see in the current year, that is next year, your V by C ratio is already 2.58. And as you go further, 2031 and 2041, it's only increasing 2.79, 2.75. Okay. At the entry of the tunnel, at Hebbal Junction, at the exit of the tunnel in BAU condition, you will see 2.12 and so on. Yeah. And at Mekri Circle, again, it's still, above 1. Yeah. And when you add the tunnel as the scenario along with the existing road, the section which overlaps, which goes parallel, you would see a reduction in the V by C ratio, but it's still above 1. Still above 1, or still remains in level of service F category, the worst level of service category. Yeah. And of course, in 2031, it increases to 1.17 and then 1.21. Yeah. So forget about longevity, forget about permanent solution. It's just not a solution itself for what we are trying to solve, that is traffic. Now, hypothetically imagining that these three lanes were actually 3 metro tracks. Yeah. So each metro track can actually add a capacity of 69,000 passengers per hour per direction, compared to a road lane width, which adds a passenger capacity of just 1800 passengers per hour per direction. So if such a scale of capacity is there, then this whole V by C ratio is close to 0, essentially free flow conditions. So the space economy suddenly changes, when you have a public transport system like metro into it. We'll also see the cost dynamics later on in my presentation, but you see the huge difference between what a road tunnel offers as capacity and what relief it brings to the traffic. But if you are having a metro system, and as Puneet was also saying, if it continues along the red line, this whole, phase 3A line that goes all along, crosses the city, you would see this level of, this lower V by C ratio all along the tunnel. Yeah. So it's a huge difference you would see. Then this is the other direction, airport to Bangalore. Again, you really see, even with tunnel, you are close to 0.82 V by C ratio, and it increases to 0.91, 0.86. It remains in that range, which is level of service E. Essentially, it doesn't really changes. Yeah. At the exit and entry, of course, there will be changes, but right now, to understand that, we need to do a traffic micro simulation. Then only we'll be able to see, and I'll show what happens when 6-lane suddenly merges into 3-lane. So what you're going to create is classic bottleneck points, both at entry and exit points of this tunnel. Yeah. So you would see the V by C of Hebbal Junction 2.12 and grows over the period. The V by C with the introduction of short tunnel brings the ratio to 1.06. It's still level of service F. And with metro, you're literally, the free flow conditions, and you can sustain this level of service over a long, long time. That's the space economics that we are talking about. Yeah. So this is how it looks like, at the different stretches of this whole short tunnel. It remains as a level of service F mostly, or at the most E. So what is that really you're really solving with respect to traffic? Literally nothing. What for we are building, and we have to then go and ask the government, what is that you're building for, if it is not helping traffic, and why we are doing this in the name of traffic. So this is what happens when you create a bottleneck section. So what you're ending up doing is, with this 3-lane of tunnels being added, you would create a classic bottleneck where what will happen is, as the vehicle exit or entry, you would see the shock waves of the queue propagating back into those tunnels, into those road itself. Yeah. So the whole spillover effect of this bottleneck will clog and congest the traffic inside the tunnel itself. Yeah, you would see a classic live example of this from this video of one of the cities of China, where almost 20-25 lanes are merging into 5 lanes. And this is what happens, the kind of bottleneck you create when you have these differences, and it becomes a classic bottleneck. And the spillover effect of this onto the queue that forms takes a long, long, long time to dissipate. Yeah. So you might end up, nowadays people keep posting in social media that, look, I went past Hebbal flyover, and then by the time I reached the Windsor Manor Junction, it was already 70 minutes. Once this tunnel is formed, it would probably take 90 minutes. Yeah. But what DPR is saying, we looked at the DPR values also. They show this figure for business as usual, V by C ratio. But what we have realized is that they have actually underestimated the corridor capacities by assuming wrong values of capacity in each of the direction, where the actual figures is this much, which is basically to inflate the business as usual V by C ratio, trying to highlight an urgent need to expand the capacity. And you would see that in the DPR they are showing with tunnel the V by C ratio would come down to 0.5, 0.6, etc. But our assessment actually says 1.06, and even in the other direction 0.82. Yeah, so there is a clear difference between what they have tried to put in the report and what our estimations are saying. And of course, as I mentioned, if you imagine a metro in this, the whole space dynamics completely changes. Yeah. Therefore, there is no alternative and a long-term solution other than a MRTS system like metro or urban rail system. Now, coming to the cost-benefit analysis, what we have tried doing is to compare the per passenger cost of constructing a infrastructure, comparing the proposed short tunnel road versus the underground metro from a capital cost perspective. Okay. So if we take the total passengers that will be used, that will be using the facility over 30 years, and calculate how much it costs to carry one passenger over 30 years, to carry or to transport one passenger over a 30-year period. A short tunnel cost actually rupees 5.23 per passenger, whereas an underground metro, a same thing being an underground metro, would cost actually 0.86 rupees only to carry one passenger. That's the difference of the cost efficiency that you bring with a public transport system. Even we have tried calculating this in terms of the throughput capacity, passengers per hour per direction, 13.7 lakh, 74 lakh for a short tunnel per PPHPD versus just 2.26 lakh rupees per PPHPD. So what this is essentially telling us is that the per passenger cost, a cost to carry one passenger by a short tunnel, is almost 6.12 times more than a underground metro. I'll repeat here. Cost to carry one passenger by short tunnel is 6.12 times more than the underground metro. This is the difference of cost, and what a brazen, what a colossal waste of public money. Yeah, when you can do it much cost effectively. Yeah. And we try to identify some of these discrepancies, as I said, use of wrong capacity values, even referring to highway capacity manual, they have ended up using wrong capacity values to inflate the baseline V by C ratio. Also, the DPR is, allocating the traffic on the tunnel road on very arbitrary diversion brackets between 50% and 80%. Simple, hypothetical assumptions, bypassing, standard empirical methods like stated preference surveys or, combined corridor capacity assessment, and thereby undermining the whole technical rigor that is required in such kind of, feasibility analysis and DPRs. Also, as some of you would have noticed, there would be a probable capacity reduction due to speed. The sharp turn, in the short tunnel, actually, the DPR itself says that the design speed reduces inside the tunnel itself on this, sharp 60-meter radius curve from 60 kmph to 40 kmph. What this will do is reduce the capacity substantially and cause queue formation inside the tunnel. And along with that, it could also pose a potential hazard for accidents, because if people don't follow the speed limit, there are all chances that these kind of sharp curves can lead to accidents. So these are also possible issues. And as Puneet also pointed out, the tunnel entry exit at Hebbal Junction are in the low-lying area near Hebbal Lake, and it's likely to get flooded during the rainfall events. And then, what would then we'll see is that the flooding will happen inside the tunnel itself. But such scenarios and evacuation plans for those kind of flooding situations are completely absent and not been addressed in the DPR also. Also, the impact of this on this existing flyover loading on the tunnel foundation, because they are going for this whole cut and cover method. There will be a limited soil support between the lake boundary and the flyover pier, and which is likely, there is high likelihood that open and cut section of this short tunnel may compromise the foundation of the existing prior years, rendering it unserviceable. And of course, during the construction period, you will see this whole road not being usable, and it will create much more chaos. And this aspect has also not been looked into from geotechnical point of view. So to conclude, while the tunnel provides very short, and little relief, but it still remains in the heavily congested state, and therefore it diminishes, very quickly in terms of its value, literally almost immediately, and especially at the entry-exit points of the tunnel. The congestion is expected to eventually approach level of service F in no time, once the tunnel road is over. And one also needs to do a proper micro simulation modeling to see how much actual queue length formation would happen inside tunnel due to the bottlenecks at entry and exit. As I said, this sudden capacity change, it's going to result in queue formation. And as I was saying, the cost dynamics, the tunnel imposes approximately 6 times the cost that otherwise would have been required to carry one passenger, and this whole burden on taxpayers' money. Yeah. And it's very clear, therefore, that if you have a continuous metro corridor, that comes from airport, goes along towards the city center, that's really the long-term and permanent solution, nothing else. And it will have substantial, impact over the network also. So obviously having MRTS alternative would reduce dependence on private vehicles, thereby reduce vehicle kilometers traveled, and also then fuel consumption would reduce. It will reduce our oil import bills, for which government is going and doing all kinds of ethanol blending and so on. The important thing is to reduce our consumption, which is what we can achieve with a public transport system and not by creating this road infrastructure. And of course, the tailpipe emissions will also come down when the VKT goes down. So MRTS offers a much more economically efficient and sustainable long-term option. It's also going to improve environment by reducing emissions, etc., and therefore will also contribute to quality of life. We also should realize how these great separators create accessibility issue, even the microenvironment of these projects, and how much we can, avoid all these things and improve the quality of life of citizens. So in terms of recommendations, it's clearly a case for an MRTS system, to look as a alternative, a permanent solution and a long-term solution. So the agencies must not just focus on, increasing this road infrastructure capacity and creating more bottlenecks and shifting the points of congestion. Alternatives should thoroughly be compared based on the cost benefit analysis and so on, and these overall societal benefits, and then come up to some conclusions. Metro is far more efficient, both in terms of space and in terms of cost. So before I end, I just wish to acknowledge all my research scholars who have worked day and night, for last 1 week or so, working on this whole analysis and preparing this report. And thanks to all of them, for doing a meticulous job. I must also inform that today there was a delegation that met Honorable Governor of Karnataka at the Governor's house in the morning. And 2 important points was discussed. One about this tunnel road projects, and I could formally submit this report to Honorable Governor. And along with that, the whole issue of amendment in the Park Act and the impact of that on the park spaces and green spaces was also discussed, and a memorandum was submitted. So we are trying our best to see how we can, stop this madness. That's all I'm happy to present, and, given the opportunity, this is the QR code to please download the whole report of what I have presented, which is now in public domain, and the report that I submitted today to the Honorable Governor. Thanks for this opportunity. We'll be happy to answer questions later on. Thank you. I'm stop sharing it. Back to you, Vandana.
Yeah, thank you, Ashish. We'll also share the report with all of you on email after the webinar. So, yeah, I'll ask Elizabeth to now take over, go over the environmental implications of the project.
So thank you, Professor Ashish. That was very enlightening. So I'll just very briefly talk about the environmental impacts of the short tunnel. And you've already gotten an overview and the map and everything that Puneet has shared. Sorry, just give me a moment. Just 1 second. Just come back.
Meanwhile, if any of you have any questions, please put it in the chat for the Zoom participants and even for those on YouTube Live.
Do let us know, Elizabeth. We can also share it while you speak.
Yeah, I think something's, my computer is just hanging. So if you want to share, yeah, I'll just stop and.
Sure, one of us can. Vandana,
Sure.
should I?
Yeah, I can do it. Just give me a second. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks. So yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, I'll just quickly, since we've, the next slide is. It's about the Hebbal Lake. Okay. Yeah, Vandana, you can go forward. This is.
Just 1 second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you see it now, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I can see it.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, so Professor Verma has already spoken about the technical aspects. So what I want to firstly say is that the Hebbal Short Tunnel has, even though it's a very short tunnel, the environmental cost is quite fast stretching. And one of the reasons for this is the tunnel actually almost entirely traverses through green public spaces. So you can see here the aerial view that on the north of the Hebbal flyover, it's going to, destroy the tree park. And then across it is the Hebbal Lake buffer zone. And after that, it traverses through the UAS Hebbal or Veterinary College. So all of these are actually green public spaces. And one of the reasons maybe for this is, they were trying to avoid acquiring private land. But the ecological implications, of course, is that, it has a great environmental damage. So the next slide. Yeah. So this project is actually going to damage one of the oldest areas in Bangalore, which is Hebbal. It's a 1,300-year-old village. And also the lake itself is very old. It was one of the lakes built by Kempegowda 1 in 5037. So it's almost 500 years old. And this picture of the Hebbal Lake is about close to 100 years old. It's from the NCBS archives. And if anybody wants to see it, I can share it later as well. Because when you zoom in, this is actually the land across is the southeastern part. So which is, the UIISc campus and all will be on this side. So you'll get an idea of what kind of a contiguous landscape it would have been traditionally and ecologically also around the Hebbal Lake. So for the tunnel itself, 3.5 acres of the lake have been transferred, and the alignment of the tunnel also passes very closely to the lake boundary. And I also heard Professor Verma say that that digging up that buffer zone along the road could also impact the existing flyover piers also. So if you ever get a chance to walk, you'll see that the buffer is very narrow. It's so the tunnel road actually literally is going to infringe meters within the buffer zone of the lake. And of course, the tunnel itself is, going to be a watertight, permanent structure that is going to be there forever once, supposedly, when it's built. And you can imagine the hydrological negative impacts it will have on, the area. So it could affect the lake's holding capacity and, of course, the groundwater recharge and Rajakaluwe stormwater drain corridors. And, it also can increase the risk of flooding in the Hebbal, Nagavara Valley and around. Yeah. The next slide. So apart from the lake, the longest stretch of this tunnel is actually through one of the last green spaces in the Hebbal corridor, which is the UAS Hebbal campus. So this campus was actually, it started in 1899 as an agricultural research station. And one of the reasons this has been able to be green is because it's had, obviously the institutional immunity. Even though everything around this campus is extremely urbanized and concretized. So somehow this is, was safe. And it also has different pockets of habitats like woodland, grassland, and it has mature trees. So it makes it a very diverse habitat. Yeah, next slide one. Yeah. So if you see the map, you will see that the veterinary college is a green island, and it's in a corridor which also has the Indian Institute of Science and then Hebbal Lake, and further to the north you have GKVK. So this is actually a very important green corridor for urban wildlife in North Bangalore. And this tunnel actually fragments this. And these areas, they also, are a place for food, for nesting, for movement of a lot of wildlife. And because of, the agricultural university, it's not as managed like a public park, like a BBMP park or even Cubbon or anything. So it actually has a lot of diverse vegetation, which helps small pollinators, butterflies, and other insects as well. Yeah, the next slide. So in terms of birds, Hebbal is definitely a birding hotspot. You will see that there are 183 birds that have, been observed in the Hebbal Lake, and 95 in the veterinary college. And there's also reptiles and small mammals and pollinators. So these particular pictures, they were all taken in the veterinary college by a walker and a photographer called Uday. So yeah, so it gives a very good idea of, the birds that visit. The next slide. So yeah, these birds, I've chosen to put them here because they are also birds that would visit, the grasslands that are kind of completely destroyed right now, because that's another thing, because that understanding that, that this is also a green space is not there. And for example, here you also have red wattled lapwing chicks, which were also shot in the same grasslands. Yeah. So even though the tunnel is only 2.2 kilometers, it's really surprising that there is such an enormous tree count that that we are going to lose. It demonstrates that there's been no environmental assessment or thought given to this project. So when we've walked along the route, we found that there were more than 1,450 trees that are marked, and for the vegetation survey. And these trees are of different species. So there are at least 60 different species, including a lot of native species, avenue trees, fruit trees. And a city like Bangalore, actually, because it's so urbanized, it requires a lot of ecosystem services, especially at places where there's very high traffic, like the Hebbal Junction. And also a hydrologically sensitive area like the Hebbal Lake. So this particular area actually should have the, ecosystem services that trees offer, such as groundwater recharge, climate regulation, and also urban cooling. Yeah. The next slide. Mhm. So I think I already mentioned that in spite of the fact that this tunnel is passing almost entirely through environmentally sensitive areas, there is no environmental assessment that has been made available. And in the DPR, there's 75 lakhs that has been assigned for environmental assessment. And the last slide, unfortunately, it's very depressing. But this is the situation of the grasslands and the veterinary college right now. That where all the birds would come and butterflies would come. Unfortunately, the work is continuing in spite of it being in court. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for covering the environmental impacts. I will ask Rishvanjas to take over now.
Yes, thanks, Vandana, and good evening to everyone. We've just been through about 50 minutes of kind of eye-opening data on what's happening on the ground, studies, what has already transpired, and what is the situation. So I'm going to take not more than the next 15 minutes to actually zoom out a little bit. So far, we are talking about this project. But this is one of many such projects happening in Bengaluru like this today. So I'm just going to zoom out and speak about the system that we have. So all of you might have questions on, okay, how does this work? How are these things going through, even despite having experts telling us in clear terms that this is not something that's good for the city? So to cover that, let me just go over the situation in Bengaluru right now. And I've just put together, I don't have a lot of visuals to go through, but just some narrative that hopefully can help uncover a part of the issue that we have today, because otherwise this is a webinar in itself. So let's start with this. Who is in charge of Bengaluru is the question. Is it the chief minister? Is it your MLA? Is it your MP? Is it your BBMP? If you said BBMP, I will ask you, where is BBMP? Because now there is no BBMP. There is GBA, but is GBA a corporation? No, it's not a corporation. It's a body that oversees 5 corporations. So which are the corporations? North, South, East, West, South. Who's in charge? So these corporations must have elected representatives, right? Corporators. So is your local corporator in charge? But hey, aren't cities supposed to have mayors? And isn't a corporation supposed to have a mayor? So now, do we have 5 mayors? Are 5 mayors in charge? So these are the real questions that we are asking today. But well, logically, you would say that who's in charge of the country? Whoever you elect at the national level. Who's in charge of the state? Whoever you elect at the state level. So who's in charge of the city? Whoever you elect at the city level, ideally, right? That is how, that is what the constitution tells us. That's what all logic tells us. But here we are sitting in Bengaluru today, where there has been no local election for 6 years now. So I'm sure that everyone on this webinar is aware of the 3 tiers of governance. So I'm not going to speak more about it, but in our local most level of governance, the election has not happened in the last 6 years. So the term of the current, the previous corporation expired in 2020, and we are now in 2026. So think about it. There are functions which have been given to the local corporations for a reason, things that impact your surroundings, our city, your neighborhoods, your areas. And the constitution actually has a list of 18 functions which it recommends that your local corporation should be overseeing. Anything that impacts your day-to-day life over here. Because can someone sitting in Delhi really know what's the best thing for our city? Maybe not. Can someone who's ruling the state and thinking about interests of our state and all of that know about, yeah, in one city what's the best thing to be done locally, or in one locality what's to be done? No. That is why you have local governance elections. And in Bengaluru, through the thick of the second wave, through floods, through water logging, through traffic issues, we have had no local elected representative who we can hold accountable. And these are the people who are supposed to be shaping at least laws, projects, rules in the city. Because just like you expect your MP to represent your region in national policy making, if tomorrow there's a law at a national scale which goes against your region, who's going to fight for it? Your MP. Similarly, at a state level, your MLA is going to fight for it. Now, today, if I want to call somebody and say, hey, fight for me, there is this project which harms us, take a stance, who is it that we are going to call? And the answer is nobody in Bengaluru. So this is another different topic on its own, but it's very interesting to note here. So then the next question I ask is, let's say that the election did happen in Bengaluru today. Let's say the corporation election happened. Would it solve all problems? Will we be able to stop projects like this, which are probably unscientific and not proven to be beneficial? So is the election the only missing piece in our local governance? And there, I would say that even if the election happened today, the odds are that we probably can't do anything about some of these issues, because it's not like all the functions which come under the city are sitting under one roof. So I would in fact call this the systematic weakening of local governance in Bengaluru. If we had elections and we had one corporation and one mayor, and we say that everything which needs to come under the city, be it your garbage, your water, drains, mobility, anything that impacts the city comes under this one head, then we can say that yes, okay, we have an election, we have an empowered person who we hold accountable, and they should be doing the right thing. And if they make a mistake, we can hold them accountable. We can kick he or she out of the corporation next time when the election happens. So that is the idea. But today we can't do that, because the number of bodies running Bengaluru, I hinted about it earlier. There corporations, there's a GBA, but then solid waste management is a company of its own. Water, BWSSB, an agency of its own. Electricity, BESCOM, an agency of its own. All controlled by administrators who eventually report to the chief minister. So the question is, how is this local governance in Bengaluru today, when each of these functions year on year have been pulled out, such that today, if we need to discuss a mobility project and what's good for the city and what's not, we have to go and kind of ask the chief minister. We need to go and meet the governor to say, don't allow you to pass so and so bill that goes against something in my locality and my area. That's outrageous, and this is the systematic weakening of Bengaluru's local governance. So this is another whole chapter of its own for later. That leads me to the next interesting point, which is that most local functions actually sit with the state government and the chief minister today in Bengaluru. So what does this mean? As a voter in Bengaluru, a Bengaluru voter, Bengaluru had 1 crore registered voters. Now after SIR currently it's 50 lakh. It may crawl back up to 60 or 70 lakh. So let's say these 70 lakh voters of Bengaluru, let's say all of us, somehow 70 lakh people watched Dr. Ashish Verma's presentation and heard the other presentations and now decided that we don't want this project because it's not good for our city. Can we make a difference? Can our votes move the needle? And the answer is no, because we're in this interesting situation today where Bengaluru's voters and votes do not impact Bengaluru's governance. Karnataka has what, 224 MLA seats in the assembly, which means that whoever gets the majority out of these 224 now becomes chief minister and controls the entire state. And now I'm telling you how they control the entire city as well. And Bangalore has what, again, a handful of MLAs, not even 10%. Number, depending on what you count as Bangalore, including rural in and around 26, 27, 28, 29 MLA seats. So even if everyone in Bengaluru today decides that we don't want these projects, and whoever is doing this to our city, we want them out of the government system that controls our city, we can't do it, because all of us can vote for somebody else, but the chief minister can still do what they want in the city. So this is the paradox I just want to leave you with today about just the sheer state that local governance is in Bengaluru. And because the problem has been created over years by different people and stakeholders and everyone who was just thinking about their short-term interests at that point in time, even the solution to something like this is not going to be easy. So there is no magic pill. Even if there was, there is no one person who is interested to do it, because this is the status quo and the entire political system is sitting in this flux today. So I just wanted you to appreciate, or rather be a bit more concerned about the state of governance in our city, because someone like me, I probably have more than half of my life left to live in the city, and I really wonder what impact this will have on the future. So I thought I'll leave that question with you as well. So this is my first section. The second section, I just want to talk about mobility governance in Bengaluru. So now I spoke about everything else in general, but now let's double tap back in to just mobility in Bengaluru. And this is the amount of money that is being planned to be spent. In fact, it is approved on mobility and infrastructure projects in Bengaluru. And I should in fact delete the word mobility, because these are nothing but construction projects in Bengaluru, which have been planned. Tunnels, long, short, north-south, east-west, elevated corridors, or let's even call it the grade separators, as Dr. put it earlier. All of these projects put together. Now, could anyone make a sense of this number? It's not very intuitive, right? It's so big that you can't just see it and process it. So I'll help you out. I've split up the zeros. 1 lakh crore worth of construction projects are being not just planned, approved. It's approved already in Bengaluru today, including tunnels. And there are small groups popping up talking about each of these. In Hebbal, we are making some noise. In Indranagar, there's already a group buzzing with about hundreds of people. Different projects, each being used to justify the other, and then we just move these congestion points from one point to the other. These are the projects being planned in the city. Now, I'm going to quickly play devil's advocate. Should we say that none of this should be done? Do we need no mobility infrastructure? Should we not build anything? Of course, we need some way to move cars. We can't say we'll only move people and then tomorrow all 1 crore vehicles in Bengaluru not on the road. Just keep it at your house. No more vehicles. Can we do that? No. We need roads. We need these projects. Somewhere we need to decongest. One would argue that, yeah, if we didn't have the whole airport road flyover, it would have been very difficult to reach the airport. So yeah, it's a good thing that it's there, right? Or there are many of these examples where some of these corridors are actually useful and have done the good job. So this is not about blanket standing against anything and everything that's done from a mobility governance point of view. The points spoken earlier are still valid, but let's say that this project did not cause as much harm to the environment, and it was even a project that gives some kind of solution. Someone still has to decide if we should do this or not. And all of us can never agree. I'm sure that 40 people in this room itself cannot agree on what project is good for the city and what's not. I saw some comments earlier saying they have a different perspective on why this project may not be so bad. So within a room of 40, if we can have adverse perspectives, then I guarantee you we won't be agree in a city of more than 1 crore people. So the idea is that there needs to be somebody deciding this, and this body must be comprised of individuals who are elected from the city, and it should also factor in all the different projects and plans in the city. In isolation, can I tell you, okay, you build this flyover, but don't build that flyover? No, it's about an integrated plan for how will everyone move in the city and how will each part of the city be connected to each other. So it's about integrated thinking. And this idea is not new. The reason I put 2007 there, it's possible that the word BMLTA, in fact, the word BMLTA did not even exist in 2007. By the way, BMLTA is Bengaluru Metropolitan Land Transport Authority. So it is the body which is now supposed to, I told you about the problem, right? Who do we go to? Which door do we knock on for what problem? This was supposed to be the solution, which in 2023, this body was passed saying that, okay, any mobility project that comes now in Bengaluru, we understand, we acknowledge that these need to be thought of in parallel. They need to resonate with each other. You can't have duplication of projects. If from one place to the other the suburban rail moves you, then the next mile maybe should be metro, and then there should be some flyovers where we really can't do metros and suburban rail, and then we need our BMTC network. You need to think of last mile connectivity. Each big project should talk to the other big project. What's the idea? And that is why, and by the way, BMLTA did not come easy. I know dozens of activists, and maybe many of you in this call also would have at some point protested, demanded for BMLTA. It was a headache where Bengaluru civic society actually pushed and got the BMLTA to become a law in 2023. But the need for it actually started in 2007. So the problems that we have today, the point I'm making in this slide is the problems we have today did not just come up today or last year or the year before that, or when some boom happened in Bengaluru and that's when we grew because of companies in the last 10 years. This problem was coming the entire time. This is in around 2007 was when at the national level the idea was already in that we are doing a lot of mobility projects and we need integration. So even during the time of formation of the metro, when metro work started in Delhi and any other city where the metro was supposed to be commissioned, the central government at that point had said that, okay, to have metro in your city, you need to do integrated planning. You need to make sure that when we make the metro, other modes of transport actually complement it and not duplicate it, so that whatever we are investing in such huge infrastructure, and mind you, infrastructure is permanent, it's non-movable. If you make a mistake today, it will probably cost you more to correct it, even if you acknowledge that yes, this was a mistake 10 years later. So this is the real stakes. This is not like a scheme or a policy which you pass today and 3 years later you can withdraw it saying, oops, sorry, it didn't do its job. So this is serious commitment, and that's why we needed this type of a body. But from 2007 to 2023, almost 16 years, no government ever wanted this oversight and integrated planning, because each one wanted to do projects of their own. And I think this is where I'll draw the line, because now it will turn into more of political comments on how none of our leaders probably really cared about the city and were just looking at how they wanted to line their personal projects or their party fund or whatever. So that we will leave out of why this was the case. But this happened, and we knew that this problem was there in the 2000s. I will tell you, I have a family friend who wrote a song and made an album on traffic problem in Bengaluru and the menace of vehicles in the 2000s. And just 2 weeks ago, I happened to hear from him and listen to that song. And here there was someone frustrated about the traffic in 2000s, and they already knew it was a problem and we need integrated solutions. And here we are 2 decades later, where every year the problem is just getting worse and we are not mending our ways. We are doing things the absolute same way. And a lot of why I'm even doing what I'm doing is because I don't want to be the guy who is 48 20 years later saying that, yeah, back in my age 20 years ago, I knew that this would be a problem. And yeah, we didn't do anything about it. And here we are, right? So that is an interesting thing that you need to know, that the need for such a body was already there, but it took this long to come. So now I'm going to end with the chronology of this Hebbal Short Tunnel. Now you know the situation of governance and what should have been, but let me tell you the chronology of what has happened, which has led us until today. So this is my last section. Before the chief minister dreamed of tunnels, or rather saw them on his international trips and decided that that's the only solution to Bengaluru's problems and we don't need studies and we just need these tunnels. Before that was decided, this 3.5-acre area, which has now been given away, of Hebbal Lake, was already in BBMP's plan to be developed as a park. It had a Kalyani, it was a park. What's important is not what's on the surface of those 3.5 acres. Maybe that is also important, but actually what's under. This is a very important region where it is an inlet for the Hebbal Lake itself. So about 1/3 of inlets of Hebbal Lake actually come from this area. So it was very important to preserve this area. So the plan was that let's make way for the inlets and let's make it a park. So this is there in BBMP's own documents and master plan if you look at it. And then what happened was the long tunnel was planned as a pet project. No studies, no research. We want to do it. They're doing it everywhere. I want my stamp on this project, so I am going to do it. A decision was taken to do the long tunnel, and then everything else comes later. Consultant was paid. 2 consultants were paid 15 crores just to copy paste some studies, and don't even get me started into that, because that's the long tunnel and then planning about all of that. We leave that aside. And then the short, it was learned, they realized that it's not going to be easy to pass this long tunnel and get it through, and it's probably going to take years. If they are saying it's going to take 5 years, then I mean, just think about how long it took us to make Ejipura flyover, if I can say that it's done. So imagine what we will do for an 18-kilometer long tunnel. So they realized that it's not happening very soon. So the short tunnel was proposed as a temporary fix. So a lot of the reports and technical reports, which Puneet also spoke about earlier, they're already saying in their own reports that long tunnel will come later. So in the interim, we want to make a short tunnel. But short tunnel will not solve the whole problem because it is a temporary fix. On day one, it's going to run at level D and E. We saw that, right? It's going to be jam-packed from day one. So because short tunnel is not going to do the job, let's actually plan the long tunnel anyway. So one failure was used to justify the other. All the research, reports, studies, by the way, whatever is there, it's on paper, it has not been sincerely done. So you can take that as a given, and maybe you can, if you're interested enough, you go research about it later. There's a lot of content on this. But yeah, pretty much everything was copy pasted, outdated reports. And fun fact is, the short tunnel was originally planned as a project for B-Smile. They did the study and all of that, and then they realized that, okay, we don't have these cash flows right now. So it was just passed on to another agency in one order, and now the BDA is doing it. So one agency did the studies, planning, research, all of that, even on paper. And from tomorrow, just a new agency has now started the construction. So this is the chronology. And the BMLTA, which was supposed to discuss and evaluate projects like these, all the research that we have, who's supposed to consider and make a decision? This BMLTA, right? It was passed in 2023. However, rules which were supposed to give the act some teeth were not operationalized until very recently, until 2026, which means that the act saying that yes, there is a body like this, it's representative, all these mass projects should come through this body. So it's passed in 2023, but the rules saying that so and so members should be in the meeting, this is how the meeting should happen, these are the rules, all of that was not operationalized. So basically it was just sitting in a flux for 3 years. And then finally they did operationalize these rules. But before the rules were operationalized, just about a month or even few weeks before, all these big projects, elevated corridors, tunnels, all of them just getting a speedy approval before the rules of the BMLTA was passed. So technically this was passed in 2023. The law says that anything after this has to go through the democratic due process. But all of these projects were approved. And then the rules were suddenly operationalized. A draft was put out for suggestions, all of that. We gave suggestions, protested against a particular clause. Nothing changed. The final rule came into effect. And the final rule, there's this interesting rule 24, which says that yes, BMLTA was passed in 2023, but until the point that we operationalized it with the rules, any projects planned before this is just deemed to be approved. So there is a blanket approval that anything which was approved before the rules came into effect are now considered as though it has been through BMLTA. So this is their smart plan on how to delay operationalization and then just pass everything, lakhs and crores of projects, and then say that okay, anything that was approved before this can now not be questioned, assumed to have been passed. We called it out. A lot of PILs were filed, a lot of activism on it, and cases are going on right now saying how this rule is itself is unconstitutional. Because there is a constitutional law now, there is an act, and now you just make a rule saying that yeah, everything before this, just because we didn't operationalize it, is now assumed to be approved. And then the government sensed that it's losing the case. And anyone who's followed the case now will see that one by one things are turning against at least the long tunnel project, because there was some type of a stay given recently, and now the short tunnel PIL is going on, a Rule 24 PIL is going on, and it seemed very obvious that okay, this rule is not probably going to hold up in court of law. So what they did 2 days ago, the BMLT Act itself was amended to make this rule a part of the original act. So a lot of us challenged the rule, saying that hey, the rule is not consistent with the act which BMLTA was passed, with the idea to take all these projects together. But now they amended the act itself, saying that yeah, by default all the projects which were approved until so and so point are now deemed to be approved. So this is the whole chronology of how governance around this Hebbal Short Tunnel has been through. So yeah, what now?
Sorry to interrupt, but we only have 10 minutes left for questions. So if you can wind up in a minute, that would be great.
Yeah, actually happy to wind up immediately. We should take questions and comments. I was anyway done with.
No, I totally understand. This is very broad. You've taken us through a lot, and yeah, understanding governance, especially local governance, is, like you said, it's going to be its own masterclass. But thank you for doing your best and presenting.
Great, thank you, and happy to connect further if anyone wants, and happy to go over to the questions.
Yeah. Banu, are there any questions that you have made a note of? Do you want to start with the ones in the chat?
Yeah, we have quite a few questions and comments in the chat as well as the YouTube live stream. So I think a couple of big questions for Professor Verma. I think you may have seen one or two of them already, but yeah. Yeah. So I think Shantanu has been asking if you argued for transport equity that requires both affordability and accessibility, but is this really happening? And he's brought a point of.
So I read that, and not at all. In fact, the whole future in the current business as usual for the city is very bleak, and the quality of life of people is going to suffer. And that's very, very clear in the current business as usual. The city is already declining in terms of its sustainability, livability, and resilience. All three aspects of declining, unless we really do something drastic to stop it. Specifically on accessibility and affordability. Now, there's 1 lakh crore projects, that Raghavan basically mentioned. Many of them are going to be toll project. Even if you take just this long tunnel road, the proposed toll is roughly 300 kilometer one-way trip. So if you are a commuter and if you use this tunnel to go to your office and come back in the evening, you are going to pay roughly 600 rupees, almost 18,000 rupees per month, 18 to 20,000 rupees per month, just to use this tunnel for a two-way trip. Now imagine out of this 1 lakh crore projects, at least half of them are proposed as tolled roads. Okay. So you imagine what happens to the affordability. What would be your commute cost every day if you have these many tolled, roads? Okay. And accessibility goes for a toss, because when you don't focus on people's throughput and only focus on vehicle throughput, you don't realize how accessibility gets compromised for people and different sections of the society, and also in the micro environment of these projects. We don't realize that how communities are now getting separated because of these elevated projects or grade separators. How a bus user cannot, access a bus stop on the other side of the flyover or a elevated corridor. Yeah. So current situation is extremely alarming, extremely alarming. I'm just using these words to make people understand, and this is purely based on how we technically understand and get a whole picture of sustainability and livability.
Yeah, I think, and as Rishwan just pointed, this is what the BMLTA was supposed to fix some of these technical shortcomings that happen when there are so many agencies planning. So, Professor Verma, we have one more question, both on the live stream. Rajkumar Dugar, who's an active citizen and one of the earliest people to raise the short tunnel issue, as well as Sahana in the chat here, they both brought up the tunnels itself, the width of the tunnels and the shape of the tunnels, and whether they could also be risky. Sahana has asked if it could cause problems in terms of an emergency during what if an ambulance needs to get through quickly. Rajkumar Dugar has pointed out that he believes it could be more accident prone. Do you have
Yeah,
any?
yeah. Yes. So in my presentation also, I pointed this out. One aspect is that short 60, meter radius curve that they have introduced, and where they themselves have said that from 60 kmph, this design speed goes to 40 kmph. Okay. Now, obviously, the enforcement of traffic laws is always neglected and very weak. Yeah. So when on the such kind of curves where the speed is supposed to be restricted, if people speed up, which is what generally unfortunately happens, you would see
Right.
huge accident risk. Okay. And then because of the low level of Hebbal Lake, uh, um, the entry exits are quite prone to rainwater coming into the flood. So the DPR that we have scanned has no proposal for any emergency and evacuation plan. So obviously there are a number of these possible hazards associated. And the third thing is, at the bottleneck sections, the spillover of the queue will spill back and shockwave will propagate inside tunnel. So essentially you will have queue formation inside the tunnel itself. Okay. And when vehicles are stranded, their tailpipe emissions are on. You also create situation where the air quality goes bad inside tunnel. Yeah. There could be all kinds of problems.
Yeah, I think Gautam Narula also brought up the tailpipe emissions. This was a question he had. One more question for you, Professor Verma. On YouTube Live again, there's one person who's asking if the rail line that is there near Hebbal, if that was made elevated, would that help the traffic situation on the road and potentially
So
remove?
what we need really for this city is a very dense spider web-like network of MRTS system. And when I say spider web, a circular city like this should have a lot of radial lines and number of ring lines. So that from anywhere to anywhere in the city, you can travel using combination of these radial and circular lines. And this means combination of both urban rail system, which is 150 kilometers planned, and the metro rail system 317 kilometer plan. Together, we are looking at least 450 plus kilometer of MRTS network. We proposed a inner ring metro corridor also underground, which government has intentionally buried it under carpet because they want to push these large road infrastructure projects. That corridor is there in the master plan network of 317 kilometer. But government has clearly told BMRCL to remain silent on that, just because they want to push this project. So when you have that dense spiderweb network, you then bring every destination within walkable distance. So the only thing then you're left to do is just create walkable streets so that people can walk to your nearest MRT station and just use public transport. This is the only way the city will have a sustainable and long-term solution, and a city that will become more livable, where people's well-being would also improve.
Okay, well said. I think I'm going to consolidate a few questions which have a common theme here, and I would like all of you to take a shot at it. Starting with Rishvanjas maybe, which is basically everybody's concern is that, okay, this project seems like a bad idea. Many projects seem like they're happening without due diligence. But what do we do now? Rishvanjas, you've taken us through very detailed but possibly also slightly depressing situation that we're in terms of governance. So I'm going to open this up to you first. What the big question that is being asked on YouTube as well as here is what next? What can we all do as citizens, as the public?
Yeah, sorry, I'm off video as I just hit the road, but there is a very clear answer to this. There is only one thing that our politicians listen to, and that is numbers. And we have seen that time and time again. I'm not just referring to the recent student protests but that's a very good example. But the politicians only listen to numbers. So as long as everybody in the city or people here or a huge number of them just agree that look, this is bad for the city and this is what we need to do, I think everyone can change. And that's the only reason I'm even here and I'm doing this, right? Because otherwise I might have painted a depressing picture. But what makes me wake up every day and say that yeah, this is worth pursuing is because if we convince enough people, I think that change is possible either for these tunnels or for the government system, for the system in general. That is number one. Number two, for those of us who are a bit more actively engaged, trying to further the cause, study these things, put it out, in some sense it is on us to communicate this in a way that the common layperson understands, the average voter of Bengaluru understands. Why will today an average voter of Bengaluru oppose this tunnel project? Like nothing that we have probably conveyed in this webinar speaks to the average voter of Bengaluru. And I'm just being a bit critical. So now the burden has been passed on to those of us who want to fight for these causes to figure out how do we communicate this such that everybody in the city understands. So I think
Okay, I think we lost Rishwanjas, but let's.
that's the problem.
I think if I get what you're saying that the final thing is that we have to find a way to communicate this to the lowest common denominator, everybody in the city, right? Can we also have Puneet, Elizabeth? Do you, as citizens, as active citizens, what have you learned? What are you hoping to get from something like this?
Yeah, so it is not just one project. This is what I started with, and I'm just ending it with that also. So it's a pattern. It is not just one project. We have to keep. First thing is we have to understand how the system works. A little bit of awareness, and then all of us need to speak together. Like Rishi also said, it is the numbers that will, it is only that noise that reaches those people in power. So I think all of us need to keep talking about it, keep questioning it. And yeah, that is the only way forward, I guess. The pessimist in me, has sort of given up on this short tunnel because I've actually seen the kind of work that is going on there. I see it very likely that, this will stop or the progress will reverse. But then it just doesn't stop there. There's just so much happening all around. I think, yeah, no, we should just keep questioning and asking.
Okay. Elizabeth?
But the same thing, I think in Bangalore, we're just dealing with such a culture of there's no accountability. And every project, it's the same pattern. So I think, as Puneet pointed out, we have to, do whatever we have to, even though though we can't control the outcome. So whether it's signing a petition or turning up when you have a protest, you just have to do your bit, I guess. And also, it's very disappointing, and I think we're all united in this frustration of everything. No green cover, and then traffic, and the same problems, and being stuck. Like when you're on the road, you're really experiencing all of this, right? Like the noise, the dust, the frustration. So yeah, we really need to do something together. Yeah.
Okay, Professor Verma, I'd like you to have the last word. You have been vocal for many years through many governments talking about these sorts of infrastructure projects. So, and you've always done it with a sort of technical, scientific perspective. Um, so what do you, and then what should we all do next? What do you have to
I
suggest?
think, I mean, in spite of years and years of, spending our energy to stop what is more damaging, I wish, we could have spent more time creating more beautiful and good things for the city and for citizens. I live inside IISc campus. Many of you talked about the ecological diversity of this campus. And I just keep feeling that, it's some kind of ultra luxury that I'm in. And I religiously walk every day, morning, evening, to enjoy that ultra luxury. But the whole Bangalore used to be like that. We have lost that ultra luxury that was accessible to everybody. Yeah. So every time such kind of damaging projects have come, we have taken the best of our responsibility and commitment that my research lab has for the city, for the people of the city, to stand out and clearly say technically and on scientific grounds what is right and what is wrong. And my whole research scholar team, etc., they put a lot of effort. They understand the value that their research carries for the people of the city and for the general well-being of people here. So we have tried our best. In past, we have succeeded in stopping projects like steel flyover, the earlier versions of elevated corridor, the Sankey Tank flyover, and the recent one, many of you may not know, the double-decker proposal. The whole phase 3 being proposed as double-decker. In fact, we have got some of these ideas stopped for the other cities also, where these double-decker proposals were planned, which is above the road, first level of road, and then metro. That means you're creating a road deck parallel all along to the metro deck, another big ticket road infrastructure. So we have succeeded many times our technical evaluation and how smartly we have tried navigating it to right people, right institutions who can take decisions, to stop such kind of projects, unscientific projects. So we have done that in past and will continue to do this as long as I'm in service, as long as my research lab is there. And over the time, we have also started bringing the connection to livability and quality of life, because everything is impacting our quality of life.
Right.
So as in my introduction also, was said, I'm heading an international group and society on sustainable transport and livability. And we are bringing and building a world community of researchers, of people who can bring better understanding of how transport interventions contribute to better quality of life, better well-being, and so on. This is how we really have to see our city and reimagine it. And we'll continue to do this. There are governance aspect also. There are organizational fragmentation also. Many of these points are there. And over the time, as I have understood the gaps, I have started talking about those gaps as well and pitching it to concerned ministries. For example, we talked about a dedicated urban transport service cadre in the country. I am still pushing it. Our MP Tejasvi Surya actually submitted a notice in the last monsoon session in Parliament last year for Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs to take this up, because we really need a structural change in who is handling the subject of urban transport in our cities. I've been saying that the bureaucrats who heads organizations like BMRCL or BMTC, organizations which are handling transport functions, should not be headed by bureaucrats.
Yeah.
You actually need technical leadership, technocrats on these, which will bring right technical knowledge and outlook, which will come through the service cadre. Along with that, I've also been talking about this whole organizational structure, how other cities are looking at it and doing it. For example, Transport for London, Singapore Land Transport Authority, and so on and so forth. Another big gap and mismatch of who is, handling traffic management. Nowhere else in the world you will go and see that general police actually handles traffic management. And why this is done in our country. I keep saying this point, that majority of the mess of traffic is because of the actions of traffic police, because as an organization, they don't have technical capacity and capability and know-how to handle this complex function. Nowhere else in the world it is done like this. In UK, British police has no role in traffic management. In Australia, Australian police has no role in traffic management. Why are we doing this in our country? So there's a lot of these gaps, and I've vocally started talking about structural major reforms on these aspects, because otherwise my research is only hitting wall. It's not reaching the ground. So we want to make sure that that also happens, and we bring a more long-term changes, more structural changes in how our cities are handling the subject of urban transport. Back to you.
Thank you. I'll say I disagree slightly. Your research is not hitting a wall, it's reaching a lot of people, and you yourself have.
I'm saying the government people, in the government.
But it's also up to all of us. I think
I
that's.
know.
Yeah, thank you. I think Vandana is going to close off for us. Please share the feedback form. Please fill the feedback form that's in the chat. I'm putting it again. Yeah.
Yes, thank you everyone for attending. Thank you to the people who joined us on Zoom as well as YouTube, and obviously to our four speakers today. I think it was very important for us to do this session. It gave us a good overview and also empowered sort of all of us with the information that we need now to understand the situation and think about the next steps. So yeah, the feedback form, please do fill the feedback form. We'll also share it with you on email. And in the feedback form, it's not just the feedback of the webinar, we're also collecting your concerns and takeaways from the webinar. So this is one way we can materialize what we learned here today and see what we can do with that as a sort of an action item. And yeah, please be sure to share the YouTube video as well to, yeah, bring more attention to this issue, which is what is needed at this moment as the construction is going on as well. And yeah, we'll keep in touch with you. And if you have further questions for Rishvanjas, he's asked you to, connect with him on social media, and he'd be happy to take any questions there. Thank you once again, and have a nice evening. Good night, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.